Hi everybody, welcome back for another week of IEW Fun and Fascinating. Y'all, I have gotten a great start to the year learning how to do keyword outlines. It's hard to say at this stage in your life how useful this is going to prove to y'all for years and years to come. So I just want to say congratulations on working hard and already getting a great start. Well, lesson 3, the text and the story that we're going to use is a really cute one. It's called Belling the Cat. So go ahead and make sure you have your book open. To page 19 is where we're going to begin, but you can go ahead and, turn to our story on page 22, and in a moment we'll begin reading that. If you would like to follow along with me, you can start on page 19. So we're going to use a keyword outline to write fables in your own words this week. So we'll read a fable, we're going to make a keyword outline, and then from that, you're actually going, instead of telling your parents in complete sentences, as you've been doing line by line through your outline, the information, you're actually going to write it. So you're going to do the same thing where you're going to read your keyword outline, stop and think how to make a complete sentence out of it, and then write it out. We're going to begin learning IEW elements of style as well this week. So in this lesson, when you realize that, here's the deal. You're gonna rewrite the story, as I just said, and when you do, you're gonna realize that the way you write should be more descriptive than the way you talk. When you write, your reader can't see what's in your mind. Your style should be more descriptive and give details when you write it out. So you're gonna learn some IEW, they're called dress-ups, to help you do this, to make your writing more descriptive. The first, this goes with, you may think something, but when you actually write it out, it needs to be more descriptive. And details are what's going to help make that happen, which brings us to IEW dress-ups. Our IEW dress-up for this week is a strong verbs. Now, most verbs show action. Strong verbs, however, are interesting. Strong verbs are easy to picture. So let's look at weak verbs versus strong verbs. We're going to look at the sentences below and figure out which one gives a more clear picture. So let's begin here. The girl went into the kitchen. So that tells the reader she went into the kitchen. However, if the writer had written, the girl dashed into the kitchen, well, that's a whole different story. Because truthfully, saying that the girl went into the kitchen doesn't tell us how she went in. You could have said the girl tiptoed into the kitchen, or the girl sauntered, that means a slow walk, into the kitchen. But no, this girl dashed into the kitchen. Now, the next sentence we're going to look at is she ate a cookie. However, here's ate is our verb, it's what she's doing. A stronger verb would be gobbled. She gobbled down a cookie. Oh, that definitely gives much more description of how she ate that cookie. So gobbled is our stronger verb here. Other things you could have said that give this more descriptive picture, you could have said she nibbled the cookie. She scarfed the cookie. I'm trying to think of a word for slowly ate, but you get the idea. It's giving a more descriptive picture of how she ate that cookie. Lastly, for the moment, we're going to say this one. Where's mom? She said. Said is the verb. That's what she's doing. She's spoken. But it's a whole different thing to know, where's mom? She whispered. That's, if you can imagine you were on a stage and you were reading your lines in a play in the theater, if the paper says, where's mom? She whispered, you're not going to say, hey, where's mom? You're going to whisper it. You're going to say, where's mom? Or if it said, "Where's Mom?" she shouted. Well, then you're going to get nice and loud, and you can picture, "Where's Mom?" she shouted. So those descriptive verbs are really going to give such a more full picture of what's actually going on in your writing. This is going to bring us to talk about banned verbs. And these banned verbs are verbs that you are not allowed to use in your IEW writing this year. So here's our first ones: go and went. They're out of the picture now, y'all. Instead, and I will send a form to your parents to share with y'all in your G Suite classroom that's going to give lots of ideas. But here's a couple. For example, instead of saying he went, you could say he dashed, or he walked, or he journeyed. And there's many more, but all of these are more descriptive. So no longer, if your parents catch any of these words in your writing when they edit for you or they check your work, they're going to mark them out and they're going to ask you to use stronger verbs. Over here, say, said are not descriptive enough. You could say they shouted, they whispered, they announced. More descriptive words. Come, came are also banned. They're out. Instead, you could say she entered, she approached, and the list will go on. Get and got are our last banned words that we're going to touch on. And there are many ways to say somebody got something or they get something. You could say he won it, she acquired such and such, or he received such and such. So keep in mind your banned verbs. And this is a new thing, that's okay. You may write them initially, and then your parent's gonna help you retrain your mind to stop using those as you write and catch yourself and replace them with stronger verbs. Now the other thing we're gonna touch on today, and if you're in your book, you can turn to page 21. We're gonna touch on using quotation marks. You're going to begin your quotes. Quotations are when somebody is speaking. You mark that specially to know that it's actually words that are spoken. So you begin a quote with a capital letter, just like you begin sentences with capital letters. Be sure you begin your quote with a capital letter. You end the quote with a comma or a question mark or an exclamation point. Right here it says, "What can we do about that awful cat?" And you notice they ended the quote right here inside the quote marks with a question mark. "What can we do about that awful cat?" they all asked. "Tie a bell around his neck," a young mouse suggested. Now just think to yourself, tie a bell around his neck. Is that a question or a statement? A statement, right? Therefore, we don't need a question mark. And because we're not exclaiming it, all we need is a comma. And here it is where you don't begin with the quote. You'll notice the quotation marks begin the quote. Instead, this one begins with, "Then the wise old mouse asked, 'Who will tie the bell?'" And these are things, again, will come more naturally in practice, but there's a comma separating the statement of who's saying it, a space in a quote, and then the words that are being spoken. And notice at the end, this was a question, so there's a question mark, and then the end quote. So we'll practice using quotation marks more and more as you write. Periods and commas always go inside the end quotation marks. And you can see here, it's pointed out for you with arrows. What can we do about the awful cat? You've got your question mark right on the inside. Tie a bell around his neck. You've got your comma on the inside. And number 3, begin a new paragraph when the speaker changes. And we'll watch this in our reading for today. So our reading is where we go next on page 22. It's called Belling the Cat. Read with me. "A family of mice lived in a huge house. Every night while the people slept, the mice went into the kitchen to eat. Then one day, the family brought home a cat. Every time the mice went out of their hole, the cat would come out and eat some of them. "What can we do about that awful cat?" they all said. "Let's tie a bell around his neck so we can hear when he is coming," a young mouse said. "What a good idea," they all said. Then the oldest and wisest mouse spoke up and said, "Very well then. Who will volunteer to put the bell on the cat?" No one said any more. All right, let's break this down sentence by sentence. Go ahead and grab your pencil and let's look at the very first sentence. A family of mice lived in a huge house. Think about the main idea, the most important words there. I'm going to suggest that you underline family, mice lived, house. Now, huge is kind of a nice detail, but just a reminder with keyword outlines, we're limited to using symbols and 3 keywords. So that's why I'm leaving huge out and I'm going with my main ideas that will help me keep track of the main storyline. Next sentence. Every night while the people slept, the mice went into the kitchen to eat. Grab your pencil, get ready. People slept, mice, kitchen, eat. Then one day the family brought home a cat. Now pause and think to yourself, what would you say are the most important words there? All right, here's some ideas of what it could be. Family brought cat. Next sentence. Oh, looks like I skipped right to the underlining here. Every time the mice went out of their hole, the cat would come out and eat some of them. So I underlined out hole, cat eat some. I'm going to underline this real quick. Now notice the sentence starts a new line in your story. Look into your story on page 22. This next line, see how where it says the end of the first paragraph, every time the mice went out of their hole, the cat would come out and eat some of them. Can you find that on your page 22 towards the top? After it says, and eat some of them, the very next line begins indented, like it's a new paragraph. And why is this? Because it's a quotation. It's something someone is saying or speaking. And they said, "What can we do about that awful cat?" They all said. Notice one other piece here. You'll see inside the quotation is either a comma, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. And this one has that's right, a question mark. And I would recommend underlining, what do about awful cat. Next, and you'll notice that we have a new speaker, so we have a brand new indented line. It says, let's tie a bell around his neck so we can hear when he is coming, comma, inside the quotation, a young mouse said. Underline tie, bell, hear, coming. Now, as you go, I won't always be underlining your keywords necessarily for you, and you may not always pick the same words that I would have picked. That's all right. This is just an example in the beginning of, as we get going in writing, where I'm modeling it for you, and it just kind of helps you key in on the keywords. What a good idea, they all said. Notice what's inside the quotation mark? A comma. Underline good idea, all said. Next line. Then the oldest and wisest mouse spoke up and said, very well then, who will volunteer to put the bell on the cat? Notice when you're stating in the very beginning who's saying it, and you don't start with the quote, you begin with who's saying it. Before the quote begins over here, you have a comma. Then you begin your quote. You've got a capitalized letter to begin the quote, like the beginning of their sentence. And you've got your quotation mark inside the quote at the end. Underline wisest, who, volunteer, bell, cat. Next line, then last line, no one said any more. Underline, no one said more. All right, and this is kind of what our outline looks like. And I will, as you can either pause here the video and go ahead and copy it onto your keywords onto page 23 with the symbols and abbreviations that I've given you here. Or I will have a image, as always, in your class notes where you can click and copy from there. You'll notice some of the symbols I've used here. Z's stand for sleep. Of course, a house for little outline house for house. Got a little mouse head here for the mice. Little mouse hole. Out of the mouse hole, the cat would eat some. And they questioned what to do about the awful cat. Tie a bell, neck, here, coming. Good idea, all. And this stands for said. The wisest, there's a little quote for him, who would volunteer, the bell, the cat. No one spoke more. So that is your outline, and you're going to copy that down to get yourself ready to make these into complete sentences, just like you've been doing orally with your parent. Only this time, instead of just telling it to your parent, you're going to write it down on your paper to write your story. Now, in this lesson, you're also going to begin creating titles for your writing. You'll notice on page 22 in your book, their title for their writing was called Belling the Cat. You're going to create your own title with your writing. Now, here's how you create a title. First, step 1, you're going to add a moral, also known as a lesson learned, for your last sentence. So you'll write out your keyword outline, and then you're going to add your own last sentence, which is called a final clincher. You're going to choose, and so that'll be your last sentence. Let me just camp there and say, you're going to write according to your keyword outline, except the last sentence is going to be the moral or the lesson that you write as your final clincher sentence. Now, to come up with your title, you're going to choose some key words from the moral or your final clincher to use in the title. And let's look at how that's done. Up here, we have a moral for this story could be that you end by saying, do not suggest solutions that are impossible. Well, let's look at what the key words in that clincher would be. I would say solutions and impossible would be the key words there. So, a possible title could be Mission Impossible. Just as an example of how you can come up with your titles. Now, the new step for this week is instead of just telling the information back to your parent in complete sentences, this week you're going to take this one step further. You're going to write your complete sentences down. So you're going to open up your book to page 26 now. Go ahead and find that page in your book. On page 26, you're gonna see at the top where it says checklist, belling the cat. Now you have 3 items that you're gonna be asked, well actually 4 items that you're gonna be asked to pay attention to in your writing. Number 1, you'll notice under structure, the first one, worth 5 points. Your composition or your writing is neat and double spaced with your name. That's easy, y'all. Just skipping lines in between your writing and making sure your name is at the top is going to give you 5 points on your writing. Next on your checklist, it says you have a title that reflects words in your final clincher or your moral. Elements of style. They're asking that you put a strong, at least one strong verb, that you use strong verbs, and you need to underline at least one in your writing, and that you make sure you underline it for your final draft or your final writing piece that you're turning in, and that's going to be worth 5 points. I'm just going to go back real quick. What that strong verb means is in your, here we go. In your writing, when you say the wisest mouth, instead of saying the wisest mouse said, you're gonna use a stronger verb. You could say the wisest mouse whispered, or whatever stronger verb you want to use. So that's what that part of your checklist is asking for. Let me get back to where we were. All right, and then lastly on your checklist toward the bottom of page 26, you're to use no banned words. So all those banned words we went over, go, went, say, said, let me see what our other ones were. Come, came, and get, got. All 4 of those are going to be words that you need to make sure you don't use in your writing. If you do, according to IEW, you will have a point taken away in your final grade for each one. So that's what's going to be so great about having your parents help. An editor is somebody in life who looks at a writing, marks anything that needs to be changed, any mistakes made, and editors are wonderful because they help us catch those mistakes and make sure that our final writing is correct. Your parent is going to be your editor, and they're going to help you catch those banned words to retrain your brain not to use them. So these are items that you're going to be graded on in your paper. These are items that you must not skip. And once you write your complete sentences out for each line of your outline and give your paper to your parent, and then you're going to make sure you give your paper to your parent to correct, you're going to make the changes they've marked for you. And then you can turn your final copy in to your teacher. This is the beginning of an entirely new year of writing. I'm so excited for y'all. It is exciting. Your writing begins in a whole new way this week. Have fun with it. Choose to embrace the journey and have a truly great week. If you have any questions, of course, ask your parents. They're welcome to contact me. I'm cheering y'all on and hoping you have a great week in the beginning of fall here. Have a great one, y'all. Bye-bye.